with Laura. All right. Can I have a huge cheer from the SDG Action Zone? That's right. We are back with our next session. It's titled How Education is a Tool to Advocate for Change in Our Response to Climate Change and Other Barriers Preventing the SDGs. And it's got its own special moderator. So she is the I'm going to get this right because it's an awesome title. She is the gender focal point for the Interagency Network for Education and Emergencies. Please welcome Lauren Gherkin and her panel.
Let's try that again. Welcome and good afternoon. My name is Lauren, representing the Interagency Network for Education and Emergencies, and I am thrilled to be moderating this action zone on education as a tool to advocate for change. Today, we are lucky to have 5 youth advocates from Cambodia, Qatar, South Sudan, and Uganda who are going to share how they have used advocacy for education as a foundation for change and as a way to address barriers like conflicts and climate change that impede the progress of the Sustainable Development Goals. So starting off today, we have Ajlan. Thank you. Get a round of applause. Alia. Thank you. Wani. Magdalena. Thank you. And Camera. Thank you. Give it up for some very impressive youth advocates here. Thank you. So if you can all have a seat. Fabulous. All right. So before we start off today, I would like to thank the Qatar Mission, Education Above All Foundation, and the Whitaker Peace and Development Initiative for making this event possible. So first, we're going to start off with a quick video. Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. All right, so now we're going to move into our fabulous youth advocate, Ajlan, for some thoughts.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And most importantly, my fellow youth members of the community. Our voices are being heard now more than ever. So I would like to thank all of my fellow delegates for taking the opportunity to speak about the issues that we care about as future leaders. I will start off my speech with a small story. Earlier on this year, I participated in the International Youth Assembly that took place in New York City, and that was centered on Sustainable Development Goals and UN 2030 Agenda. And I had the amazing opportunity to meet some inspirational delegates and to share some amazing ideas about how they serve their country and how they serve their community to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. When me and my best friend Awais Salahi went back home, we saw that most of our community was not aware of Sustainable Development Goals, and there was lack of awareness among our youth. So me and my friend decided to take a step forward and actually make a change. We decided to do our method and start by educating the youth. So we were thinking, what is the easiest possible and possible way to reach the youth? It was obviously through social media, because we use social media 2 or 3 hours a day minimum. So it was and we chose Instagram as our platform to share the ideas and share the messages, because it was the easiest platform to reach the youth in our community. We started up by posting some posts about SDGs and about Sustainable Development Goals. And then we moved on and give the youth a platform to actually express their opinion and say the things and the thoughts that they have in mind about Sustainable Development Goals, and most importantly, how we could solve climate action. Moving on, I would like to grab your attention. Climate action is a major obstacle of the achievement of the common good. If you will ask me why, well, if nobody cares about climate action, then millions of people will be leaving their own hometowns, and their countries will be under the ground. So we all should care. And that is one of the main reasons that our leaders were here in the last week. So caring alone as well is not enough. We all need to do our best, and to do our best abilities to reach the things that we're aiming at. So moving on, how is education linked to climate change? Well, if there was no education in the first place, or there was no scientific research that proves that we should keep the temperature below 1.5 degrees Celsius within 2050, then we wouldn't know what to do to solve climate change. Or even if there was no scientific researchers, if there was no education to give the perfect support, we didn't know that climate change is an issue in the first place. So education is one of the major reasons that we know how to look for the problems and we know the solution. Moving on, how can we help achieving climate change using education? By educating the youth and the importance of their individual actions. Let me just give you an example. How many one of us, when we went to the park when we were kids and throw a bottle? I did. Everyone did. So we didn't know what are the consequences. Let me just give you on a brighter scale or on a bigger scale. So imagine if 7 billion people throw the water bottles in the ocean. Imagine the devastation. Imagine the climate issue that we will face. How about we look in the brighter side? If 7 million people picked up the trash from the ocean. So this is how individual actions matter and make a change in the community. Moving on, how did you learn about climate change? You might read an article, you might read a scientific research, or you might heard about it from a friend. As well, one of the main reasons that we know about climate change is through education, through our methods, through the different scientific methods that I mentioned earlier. Moving on, I am not an environmentalist, and I'm sure all of the youth advocates are not environmentalists. I'm in my first steps of becoming a computer scientist, and everyone will be like, oh, why are you here then? It's not your specialty or anything, but it's my voice, and it's my future. So everyone should take responsibility and should put up in their chest the responsibility that we might face in the future. And then, how about, okay, so we're all 17, 18, 19 years old, or even in the 20s of our age. We can't build initiatives from scratch and skyrocket within months. How about we think in a smaller scale? If every single one of us did a speech at the school, or did speech at their neighborhood, or spoke to their neighbors about recycling, then the community will be more aware, and the community will know about climate change even more. If the community know about the climate change even more, then the nation will know about the climate change even more. If all of the nations know about climate change overall, this is the main goal of the United Nations, and these are the main goals of SDGs. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for sharing, Aslan. That was amazing. All right, we're going to bring it to you now. You ready?
Does it work? Good evening, everyone. My name is Alia Fakhro, and I'm a law and policy advocate at Education Above All Foundation. And I want to start today by asking you all to ask yourselves some questions. What has your education, your journey in education taught you? What has the environment of a classroom or a school given you as a person? And more importantly, what lessons have you taken outside the classroom that's shaped the person that you are here today, or your interests or your passions that drive you forward? In my opinion, these are fundamental questions, the answers to which are the most telling when it comes to determining the power that education fosters. As a London-born student, and someone that grew up in a diverse range of experiences and cultures and traditions, education kept my path in check, and it kept it in a balance. Living in Romania, where you could see the remains of the communist regime, or in Morocco, where you see the very apparent unequal distribution of wealth and income, and finally in London, where Islamophobia is a real threat to a person's identity, the only answer that one can pose to their questions when facing these experiences is education, to really use the path of what education can give a person. Growing up in light of these different contexts of injustice, the only answer to my in light of these different contexts of injustice, education was the only answer to the overarching question of how can I, as a young girl living in this little peninsula, isolated from the rest of the world, how can I really make an impact in a multifaceted world? And how can a young girl in the little peninsula become an advocate of social justice, and do platforms really exist for a young girl like myself? We are facing several crises today, from climate change to insecurities and conflicts and gender disparities in many forms. How do we tackle these, and where do we even start? The key word I want to focus on here is we. To make a change is not to rely on one person to speak or act on our behalf, but we must be entrusted to contribute to the processes that determine the future outcomes of where our planet is going. My most recent trip to Uganda, where I actually met Richard here, and also in the Bidi Bidi refugee settlement, solidified my belief in what education can really give to individuals, and especially youth like ourselves here today. There were moments that can never really be replicated, or stories that can be unheard, and it only fuels the drive to push the message further in terms of education must be a priority for all sectors of society, and that in order to achieve the SDG agenda, we have to start questioning the system that's built, and to ensure that we as youth are included in that process. Sorry. 50 years on, and we're no closer to achieving the SDG agenda. And so I want to conclude this talk by saying that this platform is more than just an event or a photo op or an Instagram post. This is not a movement to be forgotten in a week's time, but a movement that relies on the passion and persistence of youth like ourselves here today, and to people like you and me. Thank you.
That was fantastic. Let me give it up for Alia. All right, so Wani, could you tell us a little bit more?
Yeah, thank you very much. In the first place, I would like to give thanks to everybody here. And I would like to give my special thanks to WPDI and Education above all for inviting me to share my idea of building resilience to climate change through education. My name is Wani Richard Joseph from South Sudan. I was enrolled by WPDI to be a peacemaker and an entrepreneur. The topic today is very important because WPDI has trained us to be educators to determine values and principles of building peace and sustainable development. Climate change is a global phenomenon that I have seen consequences of it in my own community in South Sudan. It has affected my country in such a way that the rain patterns has changed. From where I come from, in the greater equatorial state, it is a renowned place for good rainfalls. But now as we talk, the raindrops of the year has really has changed, and this has affected farming. And as a result, the people are resorting into catching up with a coping mechanism like hunting, overgrazing or grazing everywhere. And this coping mechanism that the people have adopted, instead they also induces the climate change itself. So climate change, in one way or the other, has really affected people in very many ways. This is happening everywhere in the world, we know. And climate change is a crisis that people are starting to see for themselves. But the real crisis in South Sudan is that while climate problem is felt by everywhere elsewhere, people in my country have no idea. Why? Because there are problems in my country that takes the attention of the people, and everybody want to fight to look for a solution and forget about the climate change issues. So the internal conflicts that has lasted for over 40 years has created an information gap. Children and youths therefore need to be educated about the issues related to climate change because of the created information gap which is already existing. And this is something that the government, however, has tried to address, but their efforts have been hampered in large parts by the conflict in my country. Nevertheless, communities still need to be educated about how they can play a part to protect the environment and avoid further climate changes through seminars, workshops, and other forms of discussions at the grassroots level. That's why we say that I have really to agree that education plays a bigger role when it comes to looking for solutions to climatic issues. I believe that the kind of programs that WPDI and education above all develops on peace and sustainable development can help in this matter. And that is, of course, education itself. WPDI and education above all is doing tremendous work to empower young youths through training in peace building and conflict resolution, including on environmental issues. At the local level, we have worked to promote water containers rather than disposable plastic bottles, and this is education. And at the same time, we have taught people and groups And even I myself am one of them who has gone through series of education processes, through seminars and workshops. That's why today I'm able to express myself. So if I am able to express myself in this way today, the same thing that happened to me has also been given to somebody, because it is all about transferring knowledge from one person to another. That's why we really have to agree that education is something very important. We have used training sessions about peace and entrepreneurship as opportunities to educate other young people and community members about environmental issues. WPDI has an important message, and education above all, that it is not the young people like myself, it is the young people like myself that can be trained and mobilized to help educate other young people and community members at large. On issues of relevances like building, peace, and climate changes. Children and youth have listened to us. Community leaders are also listening to us because we speak their language and because we share the same value and culture, so they pay attention to us. So how is it, and what is the goodness of that? That means there is an opportunity there, the opportunity to educate, so that more of the climate issues are talked to them, so that they picked it in the right manner. As conflict resolution education educator and a trainer, I'm proud when I'm approached by my trainees who always express their joy and gratitude for what we are doing as an organization to inform them about their role in peace building and environmental protection issues. I believe that our work is essential to build resilience, because when people understand things intimately, they feel empowered and they are ready to take action. This is an important first step. But to effectively address climate changes, I believe we should take collective actions too. And this must be by focusing on continuing to strengthen efforts to educate young people like me and others who can become peacemakers and agents of change. Only then can we bring together communities and benefit all in my country and the world at large. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that important message on peace building and education. Magdalena, you have the floor.
Hello. Once again, I would like to say that I'm privileged to be here today to discuss about the Sustainable Development Action Zone. I'm so happy, but there are a lot of I'm seeing a lot of posters like saying, act now for people and for the planet. And we should not leave anyone behind. So it's a very big meaning, but I hope we shall put it into action. 2030 is not too far. It's 10 years or 11 years from now. So will we really make it? This is the question to all of us who are in this room now, and to the UN, whoever who has come to attend this program. This is a question to all of us. In 10 years, will we really make it? Because when we are talking about this, about the Sustainable Development Goals Action Zone, I believe we are all the same, but the colors are different. So, I'm concerned about the developing countries as for now, especially the Sub-Saharan region of Africa and Asia and conflict-affected areas in the whole world. As I speak now, we have a lot of issues in different areas, but I would like to talk out of my experience and what is happening in my community. I'm sorry, I'm Nandege Magdalena from South Sudan. So basically, I'm going to talk about what is taking place in Eastern Equatoria. And I will talk about, when we are talking about environment, we mean we are talking about the soil, and we are talking about the air, and we are talking about the water. I think this is the main issue here that we are discussing. So my most concern is that, are we really keeping the soil clean? Are we really maintaining where we can get food from? We don't eat plastics, but we eat food, vegetables, greens, and even the animals that we get, the fish, we get the meat, they also depend on the soil. They have to get water. They have to get green pastures. But are they getting clean water? This is a question to us who are humans. I believe when God made the world, he said that humans will take care of the animals and the environment. But it is the opposite. I love the work of WPDI and education above all of what they are doing. At least you're trying to do something at the grassroots level by supporting the communities. Thank you very much. I honor you for that. In April, I went out for pre-mediation and mediation on two communities that have been for conflict for years, and it was so shocking. These two communities, most of them have been displayed to the refugee camps. What was the reason behind it, I could question. And the conflict was continuous. I was asking myself and I was trying to find out, why are you people always having conflict? Why are you killing each other? They're saying, do you know the reason? Because we are sharing resources, and these resources are limited for us. These people are cattle keepers, at the same time they are farmers. But there's shortage of water, and there's shortage of green pastures. So this is creating conflict. Later on, there is also hunger, because they are not able to produce enough food. And when there is not enough food in the community, what happens? We have malnutrition. We shall have diseases when there is no clean water. You've been hearing World Health Organization talking about diarrhea, talking about malaria, and thousands of people are dying of such kind of diseases. This is all about because of climate. And when we talk about the air, there is a lot of pollution, right from the industries, and you find many people are affected. We have cases of asthma. We have cases of respiratory infections. I basically talk in department of, as a health personnel, I'm a midwife by profession, so that is why I'm also talking about that. So this has really brought diseases to ourselves, and it is creating economic crisis. So our role, if we really mean that we are in action and we really want to achieve this by 2030, I think we should all do something to help developing countries, and especially communities that are affected by conflict. I've realized that if we really help these two communities, you will not hear the issue of drought. We shall not hear the issue of deforestation. We shall not hear the issue of hunger in the communities. People, because they are starving, that's why they go to refugee. But all this can be solved through education. There are very many ways of surviving in life, but we need the knowledge. And if you have the knowledge, you can use it. If you gain the skills, you can use it to have what you want in your life. So education is the most strongest weapon for us to achieve all the sustainable development goals. I don't think we shall have war. I don't think we shall have hunger. I don't think we shall even have an environment full of plastics. This can be recycled. People with industries should take care. Let them try to do what is necessary. Let them leave the water to be clean so that we continue having fish in the market. There is an issue of fish poisoning. The wildlife, like the fish living in the water, is also dying because of the chemicals that have been produced by humans. Why do we have to do that? We are killing life. And in generations to come, we shall lose a lot of animals because they will not have where to live. I don't have much to say, but if we really want to make it, then let's do it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Magdalena, for those reflections on health and climate change. It was very inspiring. All right, so last but not least, let's move into camera.
So, good evening, everyone. My name is Kamera Chon. I'm from Cambodia, and I'm an education above all Rota youth advocate. And it's really a great honor to be here at the SDG Action Soon that in 2017 to share an idea of how education is a tool to advocate for change in our response to climate change. So when talking about change, there are two important elements that pop up in my mind. First, education. Second, youth. And why I focus more on this sector? Education is really a crucial tool that we can use not only that education not only provide us the knowledge that we can use to understand about the world around us, but also give us the power to make a change for a better future. Education involved in every single aspect in human life, including human health, social change, economic growth, and political movement, last but not least, environment action. Let me give you an example of how education, the role of education is impact in our life and the important element of education. One of the main global crises, climate change, that education plays a very important role in it. So climate change has become a serious issue in present day. Especially, it became a topic that we discussed in the United Nations General Assembly 2019. However, not everyone is fully aware of it. While we are here being educated and being informed about the crisis of climate change, there are other people, there are other women and children on another side of the world didn't get a chance to hear about it. And at the same time, they are falling into crack in terms of the access of their education and learning due to the climate change. For example, in Nepal, there are 2 earthquakes happened in 2015 that killed thousands of people. Although we cannot prevent the earthquake, but we know how to handle it, and we know how to make the expectation out of it in order to build a better world. This is why education is so crucial in order to understand and also to address the impact of the global warming. Education will help us to increase the climate literature, also to increase the motivation in youth in order to build the capacity and power inside them to fight against the climate change. Education have also empowered men and women to adopt sustainable life and foster climate participation and leadership. For sustainable development to be achieved, it is important to have environmental protection and to achieve the proper climate action. We need education. Without right to education, we will be unable to rely that we can be the cause of creating crisis for our future generation. And we will also not understand that we can be the change. So here, everyone has a role to play, but it depends on how we choose to play. Whether we decide to ignore the crisis or we choose to fight against it for a better future. By being here today, I believe everyone here, or we as a world youth, sitting here are not just listening and talking, but also planning and getting ready to take action. It is our duty to stand and to use our knowledge in order to transform our lifestyle and to make a difference. It really starts with us. We are here today for a purpose. The purpose of building relationship among the international community of youth, and also the purpose of standing here represent our friends back home to raise up our voice and also to be part of the Sustainable Development Goal in order to fight against the global crisis, to make sure that our Sustainable Development Goal can be achieved in 2013. We have to believe in ourselves that we can be the change for ourselves, the change for our community, and the change for our future generation. We deserve better, and we can do better. So let's challenge even more. We will make it. As a young person who was born and raised in a rural community of Cambodia, with limited learning opportunity, I had first-hand experience of inequality education, and that shaped my academic interest and aspiration. Being the only one person in my family who got a chance to go to university, and the first person in my village who got a chance to study abroad, I really understand very well the significance of education, especially in the sense that all the perspective that people think, if you are in a lower income family, you're not going to be able to get access to education. So I chose to fight against the educational status quo. So here I am. I'm finally a junior student at Georgetown University. However, at the same time, I cannot say thank enough to my sponsor, Her Excellency Sheikh Hamad bin Hamid bin Khalifa Atani, and also Education Board and Rota for providing me this opportunity that allow me to see not only the future of myself, but the future of the children in my community and the children in other communities who are facing the same issues as me. So by sitting here today, I have an aspiration to build up a future. Not the future for me, not only the future for myself, but the future for my future daughter, my future children, and also the future of other kids. So after I graduate from high school, I plan to work for others. That is just like what Education Above All, my sponsor, and Rota have supported me. I see the value inside it. So I commit myself, I'm going to use the same value that I see to spread it out to other children in the community. And I believe this value will spread out of the world and will be able to build the future for the children around the world. So finally, I just would like to say thank you again to my parents, my teacher in Cambodia, my teacher in Qatar, and also my sponsor again for her unconditional support and encouragement. And also thank you to Education Above All and Reach Out to Asia for giving me the unique opportunity that it's really like word cannot describe enough. But I really appreciate in every single moment that they provide for me and changing my life to become who I am today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kamara, for those reflections. What an amazing group of young people and an impassioned call to action. We have a few minutes for questions, if anyone is feeling bold enough. Nobody? All right, I have a question for you, if you guys will take it. So what, if you had only one message that you could give to world leaders today, what would that message be? Yeah, Wani, let's go to you.
My message could be that since today we are all aware that climate change is a threat to everybody, now it is time that everybody also have to get involved to look for solutions. And the solutions are really known. We know the solutions, but people do not act. The solutions are the reforestations and the afforestations. Because we know that in our villages, we cut trees, we don't plant more trees. And we don't also initiate ideas to plant trees even. That's one. And then number two, another message that I want to give out is to the developed countries or to the developed world. We know that climate change is a global phenomenon. So it means what happens in one part of the world affects the other part of the world. So with the common movement of the global village, I think that we need to develop the spirit of really caring for whatever part of the world that is existing. It means that the developed countries have to help the undeveloped countries to fight as well the climate change problems, because I have previously said that it is happening in my country, but people are not informed about it. So instead of people continuing to look for solutions to their own problem and they cause or they induce a small climatic problem, education have to really go down deep to the people, to the grassroots level, so that everybody is educated about these dangers. And by that, we'll get solution to our own problem as human beings. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I just want to add. So the word that I want to give to the world leader, first of all, I want to say thank you to them for taking these issues into the consideration. However, I want to see them to take more action because what they have done is not really enough. So I want them to take it more seriously and not only just talk, but start to invest in it to make sure that these issues is not going to happen again, so that we don't have to come here again and sit and talk on the same issues.
Excellent. Could not agree more. All right. Anybody else? Alia, you look like you have something to say. No? Ajlan?
I will just say one word. Climate change is real, and we will face it. We will face the consequences as young leaders. So we should start planning and we should take it more in consideration. This is the only bold message that I have.
Can we get a round of applause for that? Magdalena?
I really want to say that what my colleague has said, that climate change is real. It's really real. And we really need to take action. We'll be beginning from training our own children, starting from our own families, until to the community, until to the country level, until to the national level, until to international level. So it is a role for everyone to play in order for us to not experience whatever problems that are coming up. So this is already an early warning to everyone. And the international community plus the UN all should put this as one of the most considerable factor. Because when the soil is affected, when the water is affected and the air is affected, then we humans have nowhere to live. We shall always be having challenges from A to B, C to D, and that is about hunger, that is instability, that is conflict, and that is death. So we have to protect our own environments so that we live in a safe world. That is what I can say. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is what the future looks like. So before we end, I would like once again to say a quick thank you to Education Above All, the Whitaker Peace and Development Initiative, the Qatar Mission, and a particular shout out to the SDG Action Zone for giving us this platform. Can we have another quick round of applause for our fantastic panelists? Give yourself a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you tons to our panel. We're just going to take a quick break till 5 o'clock for our next block of lightning talks. Leave no one behind. Can you hear my voice? So we will see you back here at 5. Woo!